Chilling tales for dark nights.
Want to make sure you never miss a Chilling Tales for Dark Nights video again? Be sure to subscribe and hit that bell to turn on notifications.
I walk to the window as swiftly as I can without drawing attention to myself. I don't want to alert my parents to what's going on. There's no point. Scaring my family needlessly won't do anything. No one would know what happened. I could tell them now what might happen, but why? Who would believe me? I would just die in my sleep, I guess, and that'd be it. Kristen killed herself, they'd say. And in a way, they wouldn't be wrong. It's what I'd wanted. I hoped that's what my father and mother and brother would eventually settle on. I should write a note. Tell them that I chose to kill myself, that it wasn't their fault, that I know they tried their best. It's the best I could really do for them. I wanted to die, but I never wanted to make my family suffer. They didn't do anything wrong, or at least they didn't do anything uniquely wrong. Nothing any more wrong than all human beings can't help but do. Sure, they were selfish and entitled and ignorant and oblivious, but no more than any other middle-class suburban family. There are millions of families like that, and they don't all have defective daughters who choose death. I look out the window and I see Aaron. At least, that's what he told me his name was. Although, I guess he didn't have any reason to lie about his name. He still looks to be about my age, so that's consistent from the first time I met him. His black, greasy hair is arched diagonally over his eyes. His eyes are intense, lit by a dark fire. He has raccoon eyes. I can tell this even though, by all appearances, he's all the way by the curb on the other side of the street, and I'm staring out my ground floor living room window. I'm a normal girl with normal vision, 20/20 when squinting. I shouldn't be able to see him so vividly. The only reason I'm able to is because he's allowing me to. No, more like making me see him. Am I supposed to be intimidated? He waves his right hand. His long-sleeved flannel shirt is rolled up so I can see his wrists, even though it's dusk out and he appears far away. I shouldn't be able to see them so clearly. I see the lurid stain on his right wrist. The hand jerks harshly, and the skin of his wrist tears back like the peel of a banana. I can hear the snap that exists only for me. I see the sharp, multicolored brambles inside his wrist, rising steadily and spreading outward, that make me think of an accelerated time-lapse of crops growing in a field. Rococo veins. That's a term Aaron had used to describe his exposed gore. Beautiful, like prickly shrubs made of bone and blood. He told me that phrase, Rococo veins, the second time I'd met him. When he was still trying to impress me with our shared morbid sense of humor. I love decadent words and expressions like that. Rococo veins and lurid stains. Sounds like a band I'd love unabashedly for a bit, and then feel deeply embarrassed about once I went off to college and matured in the way people are expected to. I didn't really even know what that word Rococo meant, but his injuries were such an enticing combination of gross and sad that I just couldn't look away, like an exposed wrist full of car crashes. Or maybe, if I'm being honest, I was really scared too. Both scared and fascinated. He was a pretentious dick, I now realize, but a charming dick. And I'd been too fascinated to do anything other than agree. I felt I was doing him a favor. I suppose I was. I suppose I am, still. He seems really eager, I tell myself. Who am I fooling? He was probably a pretentious dick in real life, which makes me feel really sad and pissed. It's like giving your virginity to someone, and even though you enjoyed it too, you wonder if that was a gift that should have been saved for someone, I don't know, more worthy? Then again, I'm a pretentious fool too, aren't I? So why all the hate? Stop thinking the worst of people. There's no point now. I breathe heavily and head down for dinner with my entire family. The gang's all here. My father, mother, and brother all looking at me funny. What else is new? They look at me with worry, constant worry. And it's been so satisfying to rail against them all, tell them to stop worrying about me. But they'd been right to worry about me, weren't they? I look at my mother and am reminded of how much we look alike. We share the same mousy brown hair, same flat nose, and too large forehead. I get my large breasts from her too, although she doesn't call them that. She refers to them when we've gone bra shopping as our heavy build or something like that. When you're a suburban mom, you can't just acknowledge you have big tits. You have to refer to them as something else. That type of language is for kids who get in trouble. I can look at my mother and think about what I'd look like when I get older. And I know I'll never get older. And I want to cry. I want to cry, and I should share this one great cry with them all. But if I do that, then they'll spend the rest of their lives thinking that this was the last warning sign, that they should have done something to save me. But they can't. I'm beyond saving. It's the greatest, irony? I'd have a greater irony than any of those O. Henry stories I had to write about in English class. I wanted to die until the very moment I agreed to do so. It was unbelievable, really. I've tried to kill myself twice. My parents only know about the second time. The first time was 92 days ago. Funny, I think life is valueless, yet I kept track of my attempt to end it. If life is valueless, then shouldn't my attempt to end it also be valueless? Anyway, I tried to slit my wrist. Not knowing exactly how to do it, and maybe not researching it as a way to subconsciously sabotage my attempt, I made one clean slash too far up on my arm. That hurt like hell, but had no chance of doing any permanent damage, other than leaving a vicious scar. Really, I slashed my lower forearm rather than my wrist. I immediately got a towel and put pressure on the wound and ran down the block to Eliza's to bandage myself up. I maybe could have bled out and died, I suppose, so I count that as a suicide attempt. Eliza wanted to die too, and she had a mixture of concern, awe, and resentment that I'd made such an overt attempt. She thought I'd wait for her, although she's all talk. Then the funny argument that followed about whether I cut my upper forearm or my lower forearm had me in stitches. And yes, that was a pun we'd made and further laughed about. It all depended on your perspective. The area near the wrist is the lower forearm if you think your arm starts at your shoulder. It's the upper forearm if you think your arm begins at your hand. That stupid argument, both of us being so stubborn, Eliza maybe being ultra animated to get over her shock about the whole situation, and me being ultra goofy because of my blood loss. All that kind of made me want to go on living. Just the sublime silliness of it. You live for moments like that. We later settled the question about what consists the upper versus the lower forearm by looking it up on Google, and the conclusiveness of the answer kind of sapped my good mood. It made me sad. I know, so dramatic. Like the availability of information is a bad thing. It felt like a closed door, just more mystery lost. The silly argument about the forearm with my equally silly friend had made me feel like a naive child again. And that's a feeling I'm nostalgic for. So, being the pathetic baby I am and still in low spirits about Google having robbed me of the joys of ignorance, I stole, only 4 days after my first suicide attempt, 10 sleeping pills from my mom and downed them with some swigs of purloined Jack Daniels from my parents' liquor cabinet. Purloined. I like that word. I like words. I don't want to think about things I like anymore. Good thing we're eating chicken cutlets with mashed potatoes for dinner. I'm tired of chicken cutlets and I hate mashed potatoes. Think about that. Concentrate on the things you hate. It was stupid to steal the Jack Daniels. If I hadn't taken the Jack, I'd probably be dead. It was the smell of alcohol that tipped my mom off that something was amiss. She checked on me and found me unconscious. So I got my stomach pumped and had to endure tepid jokes from kids at school when word spread. Eliza was worried for me. Her enthusiasm for killing herself seemed to be gone. And she was in a tough position because her mom instructed her not to associate with me anymore, which of course is the most selfish thing ever. I mean, your daughter's friend is hurting and you order your daughter to shun that friend? What a horrible person. Eliza's mother was always a cunt. No wonder Eliza had the problem she had. Although, I'm one to talk. Things like that, though, make me want to keep on living just to correct people's terrible fucking opinions and advice. People can be such assholes. I've been in counseling ever since the second attempt. My parents never let me out of their sight. Even my shithead brother, when he talks to me, is unfailingly nice. But none of it worked. I don't want to live anymore. That's just the way it is. That's what I decided. Aaron remembers screaming. It hurt so badly. I remember looking at my wrists and thinking how selfish and stupid I am, how crazy I am. Why am I doing this? My poor mother. My poor mother. I feel so badly for her. That's even worse than the pain, somehow. I remember thinking, I'm dying. I'm dying? I'm dying. I thought before, I'll show them. But then it was, I'm dying, I'm dying, I'm dying. Like when you have the flu and your brain is infected with macabre thoughts. When you're dying, your brain goes into manic overdrive. I saw the blood as life. I saw it gushing out of me, and I thought how fucking stupid I was. I thought life was pointless and worthless, and I always had a flair for the melodramatic, so I kept burying myself more and more in that idea that people are so stupid, that life is so worthless, how I'll show them, I'll get back at them, and lacking the ambition to blow everyone up, I sat in the tub and gashed open my wrists. And as I saw that blood pour out of me, I realized how wrong I was about everything. Like this was getting back at anyone. Like they'd care. Please, God, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean this. I need to take it back. My wrist burns in a terrible way. In an unalterable way. Mom, you don't deserve this. I saw her face, but even that's robbed from me because as I was dying, my memories of her were being distorted. I saw red behind my eyes, so her face was blindingly red, like staring directly at the rising sun and dripping gloopy. What did I think this would be? Did I think I'd gain some insight? The mole on my mother's face, the thing I so cruelly associated her with, was the only thing I could see through the river of red that overtook her face. The mole is the only thing peeking above the lake of blood I saw before me. I didn't want to close my eyes, but I couldn't help it. I became so hot and exhausted. It was all the blood loss. I'm so sorry. Even in death, I didn't do you justice. I made an unwitting mockery of you. Your only son and I do this. My last thought was wondering if I'd shit myself. If it'd get stuck inside me, like when you find a mouse caught in a glue trap, gnawed off limbs, clogged bowels. God, how awful. There's no tragic nobility in this. I don't deserve you, and now I've left you. Please, 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 please. Not like this. I didn't want to live anymore, I decided. I'd gotten so low that I couldn't be convinced otherwise. Of course, I'd tell the counselor my parents sent me to that I was making progress, made sure to give the appearance of dips and valleys, a real erstwhile effort. But the issue had already been resolved. I chose death. Then, they all came to me. I'd say it was a dream, but it wasn't. I wasn't in bed, I wasn't sleeping. It was like, if this makes any sense, like telemarketers almost. So many offers came, whizzed by. So much static chatter in the air. I felt their presence, but only some could, it seemed, slow down to make an impression on me. Life is a limited resource, I learned. Life was wasted on the living, one of them said, which I found clever. I think it was Aaron. If I decided I really wanted to die, why not give another the gift of rebirth? There was the college girl from Columbus who stole her father's handgun and blew her brains out. She realized that she wanted to return to kill her ex-girlfriend. I didn't want to encourage murder, so she was out. Then there was the girl from near Cincinnati who went to a Catholic prep school who hung herself. God, how petty will this sound? But I blew her off because I didn't want to help a girl from Cincinnati. My father grew up in Cleveland and hates the Cincinnati Bengals. Yeah, I'm a girl who says fuck the world, but I still want to make my daddy proud by not helping someone because she had the misfortune of killing herself in a rival football team's region. Plus, I told myself that hanging yourself, especially inside a Catholic school, was too self-indulgently dramatic. The petty narcissism of the narcissistically suicidal. Also, I felt bad for the unknowing janitor who found her. Then, there was the boy who looked a couple years younger than me. Maybe he was as young as 13 even. He cried and cried. He had these terrible, burnt, crusty-looking strawberry facial scars lined with this kind of rancid-looking pus. They reminded me of exploded strawberry Pop-Tarts, like some terrible blend of both the red insides and the dotted sugary frosting, all combined and seared on this poor kid's face. I felt terrible for him. I think he was Albanian or Polish or something. All I know is that we didn't understand each other. He was shy, even in death, ashamed of his inability to communicate. I tried to ask him about his scars and meant to say pus-y, like it looks like pus, but said pussy, and I giggled, and he didn't. How alienated and alone must a teenage boy be to not laugh at the word pussy? But he didn't catch it or understand. He seemed to be in terrible pain, but I couldn't understand him, so I don't know how to explain it, but I broke the connection. I liked Aaron, though. Maybe it was like Goldilocks. The Albanian had been too young, the college girl too old, the hanged girl too much of a bitch, I thought. But Aaron was just right, or right enough. He had a flair for sophisticated drama like me, and he said all the right things about his mother, about needing to go back and help his single mother who was all alone without him because of his rash decision. He acted like he was torn. On one hand, life wasn't worth living, but on the other, he should have made sure his mom was taken care of before parting this mortal coil. I remember he said this, moral coil, and I found it endearing that he was trying to sound smart, but fucked it up. He had scars on his wrists, and I showed him my forearm scar, and we both treated this like we were showing off earned war wounds that should come with a Purple Heart or something. How stupid, I know. I told him about my clumsy attempt and shared the upper forearm versus lower forearm anecdote. He'd agreed with my analysis, and I liked him. I felt like I didn't want my life anymore, and I was just wasting it, so why not do a good deed and give him my life force so he could come back and make things right? Everything was such a blur. There was so much, clamoring in my head. It was like after I decided that I wanted to die, I got this, just flood of noise and requests. I wanted that to end, but it wouldn't. Aaron got lucky when he visited me for the second time. It was perfect timing, for his purposes anyway. He visited me while I was sitting in the waiting room of that quack therapist, Miss or Dr. Godesman, or whatever she called herself. I'm someone who tried to kill herself, and that bitch is taking time out of my therapy session to correct me when I said Ms. instead of doctor. I mean, hello, I tried to kill myself here. I think we have more important things to concentrate on here. I hated her so much that I thought I'd love to be a patient of hers and kill myself, let myself be a black mark on her record. So as I sat listlessly in the waiting room, stewing in anger, just anticipating her stupid, pushy face, I agreed to forfeit my life for Aaron. It would be painless, seamless, and I agreed to forfeit myself later that night. That was yesterday. It's the strangest thing. Today at school, I watched the cafeteria staff, people I never really paid attention to at all, or when I'd really noticed them in the past, it was usually with mild condescension, Like these poor, uneducated people, Like a mix of condescension and pity, making slave wages or whatever. But today, I watched them serve the kids, run around in the back and grab drinks and toast bread, and just the kind of camaraderie there. White and black and Latino people all working together. And I found it pretty beautiful, in a way. They seemed satisfied doing their tasks. I imagined the logistics of it all, imagined what it would be like if I were in charge of the cafeteria operations, and that would be something I'd enjoy. Planning things out, the inventory, doing a job together with others, making cafeteria lunch, something I never thought about before. And I now had a new perspective on it. and all the other little mundane things in the world. There's something really noble about all the world's little tasks. Now that I knew my life was ending, everything became so overwhelmingly, imbued with meaning. A rush of other buzzing voices came to me today, all wanting me to sign their dotted lines, so to speak. No, me, I deserve it more, they said in their various ways. No, it's really me who needs to come back, for whatever reason. They told me that Aaron lied to me. You don't come back as who you were before, for obvious reasons. You probably come back as something else, and it's doubtful you'd have any real memory of who you were before. Even the Albanian kid with the gruesome encrusted burn came back around and made impassioned gestures that I assume were about what Aaron had told me. So, Aaron's claim he needed to come back to help his suffering mother was a lie, because he wouldn't come back as Aaron at all. Or maybe he didn't know, I told myself. Maybe he meant he'd come back as someone else and find his mother and help her without knowing it was really her reincarnated son. I didn't believe that myself. When you're dedicated to something like coming back to life, I think you know the basics. I could back out, I thought, although, of course, I don't really know the rules about this. Last night, I didn't go to sleep, and I just filled my head with as many images of being closed off as I could. Doors shutting, locked vaults, sealed manholes. I don't know, I just remember my agreement with Aaron had so much flowery-feeling language about opening myself up to him that I figured the opposite thoughts would keep him out. I don't know if it worked, but I'm still here. But I can't stay awake forever. Now Aaron is sitting next to me at our dinner table. So strange. This is a small table with only room for the four of us. What chair can he be sitting on? Did he bring his own chair? Is it a ghost chair? That's the kind of person I am. I notice the telling detail. It's something I like about myself. Strange. I don't hate myself. I wanted to die, but I never hated myself. Rather, I hated other people and wanted out of this endless rat race. I wonder if my tendency to notice strange things will carry on to wherever I go after all this. I see Aaron's smudged ink raccoon eyes, his melodramatic angular hair, his flannel shirt, his alabaster skin that is now swirling with a sort of showy, angry rouge. I look down at his wrists and they're gushing blood, just insane amounts. Like his wrists are angry at me and this is their version of yelling. I don't understand so much of this. Why he's dressed at all, why he's looking so angrily at me. Maybe he's angry because he's afraid I gave him some kind of false hope and now I'm trying to, what's the phrase from business class? Something like renege on the deal? My family doesn't see any of this. They don't see the angry dead boy pouring curdled blood on the floor by the gallonful. Only I see it, which I suppose means maybe it isn't there. Who am I fooling? I hear a kind of howling outside my house. It has the cutting force of gusting wind, but there's more to it than that. There's like a chorus of howls. You hear that? That's all the competition out there. If you think I'm being annoying, just imagine how bad they're gonna be once they get their hands on you. And it was true, I knew. I imagined the strawberry-scarred Albanian boy out there screaming, the Cincinnati prep school girl with her fat blue eel of a tongue sticking out all crooked, groaning at me as best she could given her circumstances, and all the other spirits out there. A whole army of dead, angry kids closing in on me. Maybe it's like a satellite, and when I told myself definitively that I wanted to die, the spirits nearest to me heard the message. Now the word is spread that I was receptive to giving my wasted life to another, and the hungry herd has come to lick the plate clean. I know you probably think I'm an asshole. I'm not. We made a deal, and if this were any other deal, I'd understand if you wanted to back out. But this is different. We made a deal, and you're doing a good thing. Just let me in, and it will be entirely painless, I promise. Let's just get it over with, friend. He seemed genuine, a bit like he did the first time we met, but I detected a subtle threat underlying all that. Why all the theatrics, then? Why the pouring blood? Why the rouge face, if not to intimidate me? Or maybe that's just who he was, a melodramatic, look-at-me boy. I got the feeling he was enjoying the allure of success, of getting his way. It's the kids who feel the world owes them something who most abuse any newfound power. That's real profound, isn't it? I'm just chock full of wisdom. All for nothing now, I suppose. I don't express this, but I'm afraid that somehow he'll hurt my family. I agree to go upstairs with him and excuse myself from the dining room. I wanted to say something to my parents, but couldn't without alarming them needlessly. What could they do? I politely put my dishes away, food half eaten, and said I just wasn't feeling very hungry. I smiled gamely at them, and it was heartbreaking because the smile was genuine. I saw my mother and father and brother as damaged, but ultimately good people, just trying their best under the circumstances. I loved them. Maybe that's a type of closure. Or maybe it's the love you feel when you know you're never going to see someone again. Love is an easy emotion then, when it's consequenceless. See, I can ruin everything. As I get up and walk, I see Aaron in my peripheral vision following me, and he's too jaunty, too self-satisfied. That hurts me the most somehow. Like he's getting something over on me. Like even if it was something you wanted to do, the other person's insistence makes you think you're getting a raw deal. Like I'm being had. I get the terrible feeling like I'm interested in a boy and I want him to like me, so I'm agreeing to go upstairs and let him feel me up, or maybe suck him off. But as I stand up, I just grow to detest how smug and satisfied and excited he is about it. Like he won and I'm the sucker. All of that was part of why I wanted to kill myself in the first place. And to think, even on the brink of death, it's the same thing. The greatest horror of it all might be that the afterlife is full of the same frustrating, terrible shit as real life. It never ends. I go upstairs and I don't know what to do. Maybe reason with him. Deep down, he seems like a good guy, really. That's why I agreed to do this at all. Maybe I can reason with him. Or I can scream. Maybe if I just draw attention to myself, it can help things, delay things. Maybe the voices outside will rush in. I started to speak and he's disappearing inside me, and I feel a fullness in my head and chest. There's too much life here. There's something inside me. It's a war in here, in my faculties. This place is too full. I'm too full. I see myself outside myself. I sense myself being carried away, and I don't feel any pain. I awake, startled. I look at my wrists, so afraid they'd be torn open, but they look fine, of course. That woman who I dreamed was my mother, she seemed so real, so strange. I remember that woman I dreamed was my mother had a mole on her face, but that's the only detail I remember upon waking. But that will fade. If I told my mother I dreamed she had a mole on her face, she'd be pissed. I'm trying to laugh off the frightening dream, but layered beneath is the fear that this isn't normal. Like there was too much to that nightmare for it to be something I can just shrug off. But that's just how dreams are, and I'm sensitive. I've always been extremely sensitive. In fact, I just know there has to be more to these persistent dreams. I'd been a despondent teenage boy. Aaron, not even close to my real name, and I'd read somewhere that names or smells are almost impossible to experience or recall from a dream. I died somehow, this dream Aaron. Blood pouring out of me, so hot, I remember. It's also visceral. Guilt over a depressed, middle-aged woman all alone somewhere that I need to save, that I owe something to. My mother, I dreamed. My mother is just fine. And if there was something wrong with her, I'm sure she'd be the first to tell me. Just stay positive, breathe deep, and drink some water. I'll get over it.
Chilling tales for dark nights.